In any good story, you're going to have a rivalry. In Bannerlord, the geographical situation gives us likely rivalries for the field of glory. And in this episode and series, you'll learn to confront your main rivals with devastatingly effective tactics. Buckle up. Right, friends, welcome back again to another episode of Tactical Enlightenment. Our YouTube channel is dedicated to all things Bannerlord related, and welcome back to another episode of our Bannerlord Rivalries series. We continue to help you guys with your most likely rival in your future campaign, whether you're watching this after the DLC or you're just struggling to play a particular kingdom against a particular side attacking you. Now, we're continuing with Sturgia here, and we're going to face the Empire today. Now, all of these examples, that's why I'll show you this at the beginning, we'll be using tier 4, 5, and 6 units, so mature armies, and that also equalizes the armies as far as the quality of units. Both sides have access to tier 4, 5, and 6 troops, and we will, of course, start out with a disadvantage in numbers. Now, we're also going to mix in some of these into this series. We will play the attacker here against an Imperial force. Now, note that we're actually outnumbered. Most of the time when you're outnumbered, you don't have to be the attacker, and so you don't have to actually be the aggressor in the battlefield. Some players still don't understand this concept, and so we'll just cover this briefly at the beginning. If you initiate combat in the campaign map, in other words, if you're chasing after somebody and you enter combat with them, you then have to engage them on the battlefield. That's a very critical distinction. Vice versa, if they attack you, in other words, if they physically chase after you and your only option is to either surrender or fight, then they must fight you. This is an incredibly important concept for Bannerlord players to understand, and I just want to cover this at the beginning. It's almost always easier to play as a defender in Bannerlord, and so you generally want to let the enemy come to you. In this case, the AI is fighting this first battle just to give us a baseline here, and they're charging an entrenched opponent. The Northern Empire has archers spread out, it has cavalry wings supporting the infantry, and we're outnumbered. On top of that, of course, most people know the Sturgian archers are not particularly good units. Now, the AI is doing its darndest here, but quite frankly, they don't have much chance. Their infantry got destroyed. They're not really using any of the few small advantages that the Sturgians have, and so defeat is a foregone conclusion here. They're down to just the archers. Save you a little bit of time with some editing here, but ultimately, of course, the Northern Empire destroyed our Sturgian force, attacking their much larger force, especially because the Northern Empire was in an entrenched and defensive position. Let's go ahead and try this with some tactics and see if we can get a different result. All right, I think we're all loaded up here. It is recording. Let's go ahead and change this to Commander. Exact same settings here as the previous battle where the AI was unable to succeed. Let's do some tactics here. Let's approach this intelligently and see what we can do. I'm going to do a simplified version of this, I think, just because a lot of guys are not comfortable using 5 divisions. We will use, or excuse me, 8 divisions. We will use 5 divisions for this battle here, and hopefully it'll be adequate for our purposes here. We're going to try to get some flanking angles on the enemy. We'll try to get some elevation whenever possible. And let me show you a few distinctions here. First, our 3rd division is Cav. That's very important because they have a unique role in the Sturgians, right? They're going to get up close and pound the enemy at range. It's a very unique unit, and there's only 3 of them in the whole game, I think. The Aserai, the Battanians, and the Sturgians that have this ability. Next, our infantry, we're just going to use in a gigantic thick shield wall. And what's nice about that is it protects the axemen in the middle between a bunch of shields. That'll be a very effective unit. In fact, the Sturgians are probably the one kingdom I would say it's very, very successful consistently to use them in a huge infantry block. Often we suggest separating units on the channel. In this case, I think they'll do just fine on their own. Now, we're going to move up our units here. There's 2 meat divisions, or defensive divisions, that we're going to use on the left. They do have some horse archers here, and I broke our archers into 2 divisions as well, the 4th and the 5th. The 4th being the stronger of those 2 divisions, just by selecting higher tiered preference for that 4th division. The The 4th and 3rd will be our flanking divisions here. Because they're tougher, the 3rd division still has shields, and so we've effectively paired infantry, cavalry, and archers in the 1st division, and cavalry and archers in this other division. What I mean by that is this left flank here. Excuse me, this right flank. Left as we're looking at it now. Alright, so behind us, I'm just telling our cavalry to attack their horse archers. We have some archers supporting them, and we're moving up to confront the rest of their forces. You don't want to completely ignore their horse archers, but neither do you want to spend a huge amount of ammo and effort to try to destroy them. They're more of a gnat to be smashed with your thumb, rather than to exert your whole body trying to kill it. Those guys are chasing it around. I mean, those guys, the 2nd division there, are cavalry. Meanwhile, the archers are going to be spraying as they try to retreat here. I can stab a guy or two, and that's adequate enough. They got pounded. You can hear the arrows pounding them. Let's worry about the main force here. I would say if you have 10% or less of the enemy force's horse archers, you can generally ignore them. Alright, so 3rd and 4th, let's start pushing way around. The enemy's taking an entrenched position on the hill on the other side of this valley, but we're looking for advantages we can glean here, right? One of them we could do is we can get higher than the enemy. The enemy doesn't always take the very highest spot on a hill, on a rock face, whatever it is. We will take it. If they're going to offer it to us, we will simply say thank you and seize the high ground here. Now over here, it's very important that we're pairing this cav division with the archers, because the cavalry have shields. They have spears, they're armored, the archers are not, right? We're going to protect these archers, and both the 3rd and 4th units have ranged weapons. That will be critical once we come in for a flank here. In fact, they're leaving that high ridge open over there. We're going to seize that as well. Now, the timing on this is important, but it's not as critical as you might think, right? We have these infantry divisions and cavalry divisions moving forward, the 1st and 2nd here, and they're in huge, thick shield walls. I don't actually want them attacking. That was a mistake. I just want them blocking arrows, right, because the enemy's pounding us as we approach, and I want them moving in systematically. That's because we want this attack to come at the same time. So over here, let's see, we've got the 3rd and the 4th. By the way, the Jav Cav division here, they're on hold fire. I don't want them throwing javelins until the moment is right. Now let's move the 2nd division up here, 2nd and 1st, and what we're basically doing is just closing in the ring here on the enemy. When the enemy's standing still, take advantage of it. Now you see the advantage of having our archers here, right? They've got support from the cavalry, and indeed they're supporting the cavalry here as well, right? Smoking the enemy cavalry when they made a little attempt to attack us. Let's move that cav division over. Now that's nasty. They've got a huge amount of archers there, so we don't want to approach from our side first. Let's make a frontal assault first, cavalry and infantry. We're also going to move the other archer division over here. The horse archers are no longer a threat. Let's bring them over here, and I'm actually going to wait 20 or 30 seconds here while they get here. What we're going to do is we're going to lead with the cavalry over here. Now notice our infantry, you know, they're suffering some losses in a shield wall, but they're just boring in on the enemy archers. That's one of the advantages of the Sturgians. They're really, really tough units and hard to kill. The AI's made the mistake of leaving its archers out front here. Now let's move our flanking units in. Now this is 3 different divisions I just moved. It's the 3rd division, 4th division, and 5th division. So that's that Jav Cav division in front. These guys here, they're in a shield wall. They're going to block arrows. Now that they're close, they're going to protect these archers from a lot of the arrows, and we'll be able to have all these archers firing down into the enemy ranks. Now we tell these Jav Cav to throw those javelins, right? And they're just going to smoke all these archers and infantry. Throwing downhill, they throw even further. The archers are going to be behind them. And let's do a chef's kiss for this battle as well, right? We've got these javelin guys here moving in, just pounding the enemy with javelins. So let's back this infantry off, right? This is counterintuitive to a lot of players, but watch how effective this will be. Our infantry is slamming into their infantry, and I don't know if you saw it, but they actually outnumber our infantry. We have like 140 infantry. They have like 250. So what I'm doing is I'm backing up our infantry here, and look at that. They're now being pounded by archers, pounded by javelins. Our archers are uphill, absolutely flaying their infantry. They're all bottled up, chasing after our 1st division there. The 1st division in a square will last a lot longer, right? They're still going to get killed. In fact, our cavalry here is being attacked. But the arrow fire into the enemy here is just completely savage. These archers here are trying to reform, or they might be routing, it's hard to know, but that is just death on wheels right there. It's just pouring in. You get a beautiful perspective of it right there as the arrows rain down into the packed enemy troops. And then the next best part is nothing's attacking these archers, right? These archers positioned where they were, protected by this cav line. This little guy here, just whining like a bitch, and the Sturgians are annihilated. Now, I have not charged with that infantry besides that initial charge. Once the enemy wave attacked that infantry square, I just told them, play defensive, let our archers work. I got that guy's back. And the archers, again, are winning the battle here. This is a theme you'll consistently see on our channel and this series. It wasn't the infantry or the cavalry that did major work here. It was our archers. The Sturgians have the worst archers in the game, but they're still archers, and those guys did major work. Now, positioning is critical, right? You can tell from our positioning is virtually perfect positioning. They have an incredible downhill angle. They were protected by cavalry, and the enemy got melted like butter. I mean, this was another massacre to start today's episode. So we'll have some other examples today. I'm contemplating whether there's scenarios to show you guys. Sturgia is definitely one of the most asked about kingdoms, and I think that's because their units are not very strong. Look at this shit. We had 300 troops survive and destroyed 542. The Sturgians just don't have a lot of advantages. And so part of the reason I'm leading off with this series... Oh, look at this shit. This is amazing. Neither of our archer divisions suffered a single injured or casualty. Zero. I mean, you don't get any more textbook than that. That's protection of your archers right there. Anyways, enough bragging about our tactics here. The point I'm trying to make is that the Sturgians are probably the hardest kingdom to play. They have the least advantages, the least fire and forget units like a Khan's Guard or a Fian Champion. And so if you can master tactics with the Sturgians, you should be able to roll out there and smash just about everything in Bannerlord. Now let's go ahead and try the Imperials in the open here. We'll fight a much larger force, and we will play defensive. Again, notice me prioritizing archers, 40% archers. Oftentimes when guys send in episodes for the Disaster of War series, this is another series where we help fellas with difficult situations. I take over their save game for a short period and then post the results on YouTube. A lot of times these guys have 10% archers, and they're saying, I can't win this battle, I can't win this battle. You really want to have at least 30% archers in your army, and I think up to 50% is just fine. 2, 3, let's do, so very similar here, right? Now we're just going to do 8 divisions for this battle, but not as much movement as you think there might be, right? What I'm going to do here is to form a defensive formation. Again, we talked about that at the beginning of this episode. There's basically, the juxtaposition works like this. In Bannerlord, if you outnumber the enemy, they're going to run and you should be able to smash them because they're going to make you come to them on the battlefield. You should be able to win because you outnumber them. If you're outnumbered, they have to come to you, right? Which means that you should be able to win both of those situations. Either you outnumber the enemy and you can just crush them wherever they are, or they outnumber you and they've got to come and attack your entrenched positions, which means you should also win. That's a very important thing for you to understand. Now, let's see, 3 archer divisions, 2 infantry divisions, the 1st and 3rd. The 3rd division is shock troops, and we'll use them very specifically. I also have this 6th division of archers. I like to have the weakest division towards the back. Oftentimes, I'll keep them in reserve as well, basically holding fire in case it's a longer battle than I anticipate. I've got 3 cav divisions, but they're really kind of static walls. Cavalry and Bannerlord, of course, are much better used in a defensive manner. I've got strong cavalry wings on both of our flanks here, kind of at an angle. You notice I'm sort of positioning these guys to form kind of a wall of people, of horses and men. You want to make sure your line of sight for your archers is good. Shooting downhill is always better, almost always better. And then this 7th division, that's Jav Cav, right? Those are the guys that have javelins. We will use them probably the most micromanaged of our different units. Now look at that shit, right? We have 34 Drudzinic champions and they have almost twice that. Right, we'll do a heavy cavalry battle, I think, as well, because guys say I can't defeat, you know, huge armies of Imperials with their elite cataphract. And also for the Reddit folks who still think that Imperial elite cataphracts are the bee's knees. It's amazing how many people still think Imperial elite cataphracts and banner knights are badass. They really suck. That's the reality of it. There's just no bones about it, right? The spear cavalry, the bottom line is in Bannerlord, spear cavalry are well below average. They're not even close to where they should be. All right, so they got some horse archers kind of creeping up over the ridge here. I'm not thrilled about our shock troops here, you know, being right in their sights, so I'm just going to kind of tuck these guys under the hill there. Some of these battles we do a little bit more micromanaging than some people want to do. That's fine. I just want to be able to show you various different things that an experienced commander might do in order to have a higher rate of success. You don't have to emulate all these by any means. You're dead as we send in our cavalry to harass their horse archers. Now, I'm only doing that because I feel like I have 20 or 30 seconds here at the beginning to sort of push these guys out of here. They're now running through our archers. In fact, we can tell our shock troops to kill these hapless guys. They're all bottled up now, getting shot off their horses. And, you know, anytime you can whittle down their horse archers before the main action starts, you want to take advantage of that. Now, though, I got to swing into motion here, and it's going to be quick. Let's see, second and third on our left flank here. The cavalry in front of the shock troops protecting them. We're going to pull this 7th Division off to the side as well. That's those Jav Cav. And we're going to have those guys, just like the first battle, just pound the enemy with javelins. That's going to be a theme you see in these battles. Now, their infantry division's coming towards our line. It actually went right by our square. So what I'm going to do here is actually shove the square into the infantry division. It's 280 Imperial infantry. We're not fighting that head-to-head, right? We need to distract. We need to weaken it with archers. In fact, I'm going to get these archers moved a little bit out of the way. The cavalry on this side over here, we can just square, and that'll give those guys longer survivability. Survivability is the name of the game, because as long as our archers are shooting, we want the rest of our units surviving and not attacking. It's instinctual for players, especially newer players, to charge. Well, once the game slows down for you a little bit, you'll understand that it's more important from a tactical perspective for your units to survive. You can see, again, we've manipulated it. Oh, shit. I was going to say we've manipulated it so that the enemy, every guy I take here gets mauled. Everybody stop. Okay. We've manipulated it so the enemy's getting shot in the back while they attack our square. In fact, you can see it's still happening here. It's messy, but the archers up on the hill are just shredding everything that's attacking the squares. Yeah, strategy number one, of course, is don't get killed like that. A lot of times when I'm just running around talking about tactics, I'm a little bit more vulnerable. And bad thing happens. That said, even with that death mid-battle, look at the death span, right? It's fizzing green as the enemy gets wasted here. They have a handful of cavalry. They do have some archers, right? So if archers are coming, let's line up a shield wall of infantry, get our cav set up there. That looks like shock troops there in our infantry division. If those are shock troops, might as well charge with those. Yeah, they are. Okay, so you have shock troops, don't shield wall. Make sure those guys charge. They're probably going to get smoked anyways, but you can see we now have a numerical advantage. We're uphill. Our archers are having a good time. We'll charge here just in case anybody's out of ammo. They will get into the action with their little pitiful hatchet. And I think victory is assured here. Now, again, this is, you know, we're outnumbered by a very large number and still going to win. 650 to 500, that's 30%, right? And still going to just roll our way right through the Imperials here. All right, I think we'll just call this good. Let me spend a second here and we will reload a cavalry battle for you fellas using the Sturgian defenders. All right, so let's try a battlefield. Let's see. That is it here, perfect. That is sort of in between these kingdoms. We did this for our Khuzait series as well, choosing the marsh. Dathma is definitely a city that the Sturgians and the Northern Empire are likely to fight over. Let's go ahead and give the Empire here a huge amount of cavalry. This is for those Reddit deniers who still think that elite cataphract are the bee's knees. Really what they are is the bitch of Bannerlord. Spear cavalry, until proven otherwise, until fixed by AI, just aren't very good. And hopefully here with the worst archer in the game, the worst tier 5 archers in the game, we can make these elite cataphracts cry uncle. Now, positioning is important, right? We're not just going to stand there like dipshits and get cut to pieces. We're going to try to use the landscape to our advantage. I'm looking for trees. I'm looking for anything that'll slow down the enemy cavalry a little bit, right? You want to use the hill. What you want to do is position units near the top of the hill, not over the hill, but on your side of the top of a ridge. And what that means is by the time the enemy cavalry get to the top, they're moving slowly. They're not charging 100 miles an hour, right? Make sure you're not downhill with a bunch of cavalry. Make sure that you've got positioned units right at the edge of the top of the hill, but not over it. Now, I'm going to say it real quick again. We've been dividing it the whole series with the Sturgeons. First and third is infantry. Third is shock troops mostly. The first is in a square. The fourth, fifth, and sixth is archers from the strongest to the weakest. Fourth, fifth, and sixth is the weakest. And let's do a ring defense. We don't do this all the time for the channel. It's effective against the Khuzait. It's effective against horse archers. A little less so against infantry. Now, the 3rd Division is just kind of in the center there. That's shock troops. We're protecting those guys with that cavalry line. That 2nd Division really is purely defense. At some point or other, we'll move them up, but they will remain in defense this whole battle. Now, the 4th Division, 5th Division, archers. The main concept here is giving these guys different angles on the enemy and also getting this 6th Division protected back away from the enemy a little bit. That way they don't get smoked early on in this battle. Now the 7th Division, these guys will just be harassing. And that looks pretty damn good. Alright, so a couple little tips here. I want to hold fast with cavalry and archer divisions. It's a very small advantage, but basically what happens is when archers are in spread and somebody gets killed, if you tell them to stand still, they won't scurry around trying to remain in their position. In other words, if they're in a spread formation and guys get killed, they will move around. I don't want to do that. Now, look at that shit. They have 3 times as many tier 6 units. 35 Drunzinic champions, 101 elite cataphract. So we're outnumbered with, theoretically, their best unit 3-to-1 here, and it's not going to mean a fig. Again, the bottom line is that tier 6 spear cavalry, in other words, the 3 Imperial elite cataphract, your Drunzinic champions, and your banner knights are all trash. They all need major improvements from Tail Worlds to be useful. Now, their horse archers are coming over this ridge, and they're going to get a rude awakening. You could start the timer because our guys are loading. 3, 2, 1, smoked as hundreds of arrows smoke these guys. Yet another advantage of having lots of archers. And just like we've done for a lot of this series, we're just sort of chasing them away with this cav division. You can tell them to throw around a javelins here, but it's also sufficient just to sort of chase them away so they don't surround and shoot us in the back here. We are vulnerable from behind, hence this that tactic there. Very basic function thing. You're going to chase them away, kind of like a dog chasing away a squirrel from eating all your fucking vegetables or something like that. All right, so here comes this huge phalanx of heavy cavalry, and we're just not concerned at all because they just are not powerful. Our square out in front here is going to absorb an amazing amount of damage and attacks. In fact, let's slow this down a little bit. Now, look how bottled up the enemy gets. It means our archers can't miss. Now, they're hitting shields still, but they're still also finding a lot of flesh. They're finding, elbows and armpits and the backs of guys' heads and shit like that. Now, I've got this 3rd division here, but I kind of want to be patient. I want to wait until the enemy's a little bit more in our ring here. The enemy's infatuated with our square. That's good, right? Now, once they start pressing on the cav division here, that's when I like to charge with this 3rd division, right? These shock troops can now attack standing still cavalry, and they're going to get throttled. Meanwhile, their infantry's coming in. We're going to do 2 different tactics here. I'm going to move the 7th Division up and pound them with javelins. We've been doing that this whole series. And we're also going to move the square kind of right in their face so that they're encouraged to attack it and then turn their back to all these incoming javelins. So in comes our jav cav here. They might be a little bit too close. Back them up just a bit. And now you tell these guys fire, right? Now all the javelins start flying. The elite cataphract are getting pounded with javelins, and there's no friendly fire, right? Your units can fire away javelins all day. We'll put them in a shield wall here because they do have archers coming over the ridge, and again, you see these poor sons of bitches This Northern Empire force is just getting exterminated like roaches here. Javelins and arrows right in the back. Our shock troops are working. Now I want to also move this second division up in a shield wall. It's telling them to charge. This is the division that was in a circle. I'm now moving them up in a shield wall because this is the Sturgian advantage. The Sturgians have very few advantages, but this is one of them. They have incredibly tough shield wall units. Basically, think defensive. Because of that, we're going to let our archers work. We're not going to be trying to kill the enemy with our Drudzinic champions. While the enemy's trying to kill us with their weak cavalry, we're killing them with our even weaker archers, and it's effective. Meanwhile, our square is in here doing its thing. We can have these guys actually charge at this stage. I'm still torn on whether or not it's better to charge or just stay in a square in that situation. But look at these guys. These guys are like the MVPs, right? These guys are being smoked 1,000 arrows, and very few of them are dying. While that's happening, we're exterminating all of the elite cataphract, right? They're all routing or getting shot off their horses, and this battle is virtually over. The enemy does have archers kind of moving up, but we've got a little bit of infantry left, a little bit of this amazingly tough second division, and now we're ready to sort of finish the deal here, right? Again, we have all these archers that have lots of ammo. I would say those are the two prominent advantages that the Sturgians would have. They have excellent defensive units, and their archers have a lot of ammo. It's not a lot to hang your hat on, but it's what the archers, it's what the Sturgians have, right? If you're not taking advantage of the advantages that your kingdom has, you're obviously going to have poor results. So playing defense, shooting our ammo long after the Imperials are out of ammo, and it smells like victory to me. It's imminent. They're going to rout. We've got Sturgian veteran archers moving up with their little hatchet. They're not going to do very well in melee. If they were going to make major changes to the Sturgians, I would suggest they at least make their archers better at fighting somehow, give them better armor. I don't know. Anyways, victory is victory. And we're going to continue this series. There's a lot of interest in tactics for specific circumstances, right? The Aserai versus the Khuzait, for example. People ask all the time, how do I deal with these pesky Khuzait, etc. We're going to cover probably 15 matchups in this series. Of course, you want to leave feedback at this stage. Please hit subscribe. That way you see when more episodes come out. Hit that like button on the way out also. I appreciate that, friends. And with all that said, our little goat-teed spirit Sturgian veteran archers here, and I will see you, friends, next time.